Yesterday, Gamescom had its opening show. While we didn't get a ton of new horror reveals, we did get a new look at the upcoming Resident Evil 9 Requiem. The show gave us another teaser trailer with just a little touch of gameplay. But that wasn't all. The really juicy stuff released today when a new gameplay segment was revealed for us to see. Now, I don't know about you, but the more I see about this game, the more excited I am getting. But I noticed some interesting details in this new footage that might just confirm or deny some of my theories from my last Resident Evil video. So, let's break it down. The new trailer takes place entirely in the Renwood Hotel. This is the place we learnt about in the last trailer. We learnt that Grace's mother, Alyssa Ashcroft, died there, and that Grace will be asked by her FBI boss to return years later. This is something that clearly brings up some past trauma, and we learn later on in the trailer that not only did Alyssa die there, supposedly, and we'll come back to that later, but it now looks like she died in front of her daughter. These scenes we saw in the last trailer were actually memories, as Grace was there at the time. Interestingly, the hotel does seem to be mostly empty, which, if it is located somewhere near Raccoon City, could make sense. We know that this game will be returning to the ruined city in one way or another. Now, the first shots of the trailer show Grace working away on her laptop as the camera focuses on the window beside her. The way these scenes are shot make it appear like someone is watching her. This is actually a pretty common technique used in horror movies and shows. Having the camera focus on something in the background can lead to tension, as it subtly suggests to the audience that there is something there. They do this again just a few moments later, having this closet that is pitch black framed behind our two characters, making you wonder if there is anything in there. Now, just as a complete coincidence, I have been rewatching The Fall of the House of Usher this week. Great show, by the way. But that show does this exact same thing. Two of the main characters are often talking with things framed in the background, just lurking. The director for this show also directed The Haunting of Hill House, which had ghosts hidden in the background throughout the entire show. I know this has nothing to do with the game, but it is cool to see Capcom taking inspiration from horror movies and shows for their cutscenes. Now, notice that Grace is absolutely absorbed by her laptop. Maybe this is her studying to get into the FBI, but regardless, this fits with her character. We see that she often eats at her desk while at work, and this is just painting her as this bookworm style character. Or I guess you could say a MacBook worm. Please don't unsubscribe, please don't unsubscribe, please don't unsubscribe. But this ties into the gameplay that we will talk about later. Grace is being shown off as more of a desk jockey, which stands in complete contrast to the more rough and tumble STARS members or government agents that we usually see as Resident Evil protagonists. But this moment is also kind of heartbreaking. Grace is so distracted by whatever she is doing that she barely pays any attention to her mother, and as we are about to see, she doesn't have much time left with her. I definitely think this workaholic attitude is going to be a key part of Grace's personality, and I'm betting that this is going to be how she attempts to deal with her trauma later, by throwing herself into her work. The phone rings, and when Grace answers, the man asks,
Miss Ashcroft?
Yes.
Now, this man sounds exactly like the one we heard in the first trailer, so I think it's a safe bet to say that these two men are one and the same. After cutting the power, Alyssa says,
They're coming.
Now she says, they're coming, plural, which likely means that this man isn't working alone, although we don't know what group he belongs to just yet. Also, a nice little attention to detail here, Alyssa has massive bags under her eyes. She's clearly exhausted, probably because she's on the run here, but Grace doesn't understand why she's always so busy. She thinks she's just working a lot. Also, probably where she gets that workaholic attitude from. Now it all makes sense. Now, in my last Resident Evil video, I theorized that the man in the trailers could be George Hamilton. Some people have speculated that he could be Nikolai from RE3, but he doesn't have the same accent, so I think we can rule that one out. Now, George, however, was another of the playable characters alongside Alyssa in Resident Evil Outbreak. He was a wealthy man and one that didn't like Alyssa, but he also had a knack for outdoor activities, and one of his unlockable costumes was a raincoat. This man is wearing a collar here just like George did, and George was a man who collects watches. Grace, now wearing what could be her mother's watch, might be a little hint to that as well. This game definitely keeps hinting at the past, and now that Outbreak is officially canonized, that's a whole bunch of returning characters that we could see. Now, as I also talked about in my last video, there is likely far more to this story that we just don't know yet. This man looks like he is infected, and as I said, all of the playable characters in Outbreak were infected with the T virus. I theorized that maybe Grace, being a child of someone who was infected, might have some special properties when it comes to Umbrella's viruses. Perhaps her body bonded with it just like Wesker did. Now this gets even more interesting when Alyssa calls Grace,
"You are my hope."
Hope for what? Maybe a cure of some kind, or maybe just a hope for a world without bioterrorism. But I do find it very interesting that Jeff Keighley describes her as the key to surviving what's coming. After witnessing the mystery man kill the hotel manager, Alyssa and Grace seem to get away. The two share a moment as Alyssa tries to calm her daughter down. Now this was absolutely 10 out of 10 voice acting, by the way. Grace genuinely sounds like she's terrified in this moment.
"Mom, I'm scared." No, we need to find a way out of here now.
But we don't have any of our stuff.
We can come back for it later, Grace.
But we now know that Alyssa hasn't explained any of what's going on to Grace yet. It seems like the two are always on the move, staying in empty hotels, but it looks like Alyssa is killed before Grace ever learns why. Maybe this is one of her motivations for joining the FBI. She hopes to learn more about why her mother was killed and what she was investigating. But way more interesting than this new trailer is the new gameplay that has been released into the wild today. In this new gameplay segment, we see a bit more of the hospital-style area from the last trailer. Now, the most immediate thing we need to talk about is our new look at this monster. This was teased in the last trailer, but now we see her in all of her horrifying glory. Now, this creature is going to act like several of the staple enemies in modern Resident Evil games. It looks like you won't be able to kill her, instead she will act like Mr. X, Nemesis, or Jack Baker, relentlessly stalking you throughout your time here, never giving up. It looks like you will have to run, hide, or distract her rather than gunning her down like Chris, Jill, or Leon would do. But there is already a fan theory circulating the internet that this character may be somebody that we already know. From the last trailer, there was a very fun theory that this could be Lisa Trevor, a new character added to the Resident Evil 1 remake. The two do share some similarities in their looks and behaviors, but now people are speculating that this could actually be the mutated form of Alyssa Ashcroft. Her hair is a similar color and cut, and we know that Alyssa was at some point infected with the T virus. Now, this wouldn't be the first time somebody infected with T came back from the dead. But this would also be really ironic because at the start of the game you're following your mother, and now your mother is following you. But this gameplay segment really highlights just how different Grace is going to be as a protagonist, at least in this section. As I said earlier, Grace is more of a bookworm than the badass heroes we usually play as in Resident Evil, and this gameplay shows that very clearly. This game lets you switch between first and third person, and while in third, you can see Grace will stumble and trip while running. Now, this is a really common thing in horror. We're always seeing people falling all over the place, but it is kind of ironic that she's not very graceful. This gives us a completely different experience from what we're used to. Every Resident Evil game up until this point has had main protagonists that are proficient with all sorts of weaponry. Grace, however, seems unarmed, only able to run or evade this new monster. That stumbling animation is only going to add to that tension. I imagine if Grace is tripping over as you're trying to open a door or something, that could lead to some pretty tense moments. But we don't know if the whole game is going to be like this. Perhaps Grace will find some weapons later on as she gets more used to the danger, or perhaps we will play as another character in this game too. There are still a bunch of rumors that Leon could show up in this game, and the fact that Alyssa has a gun that looks very similar to Leon's Matilda from RE2 might be a small hint to that. But if this creature is indeed Alyssa Ashcroft, then I bet it will be Grace who has to deal with her. Perhaps putting her mother to rest will be part of her healing journey. But I also have a slightly different theory about this new location. We can see that like most Resident Evil locales, this building has elaborate key mechanisms and art or sculptures everywhere. But a theme we continually see with this new place is the depiction of cherubs. Cherubs have a lot of different meanings and symbolisms, but the most common one you probably know of is childhood innocence. Now, this could be a hint to Grace, who never got to have that childhood innocence, She was always on the run with her mother, only to witness her mother die at a fairly young age. Perhaps these locked doors being cherubs is a metaphor for Grace similarly locking away that childhood trauma, having to open it up again now that she's back here. Or, more disturbingly, perhaps it's a huge hint that this hospital is a children's hospital, the children here being used as part of someone's experiments and ending up like this. Who knows? Either way, I am very excited for a fresh take on Resident Evil. This game does seem like it's putting horror as the main focus, but I'm also excited to delve back into the history of the franchise. I will absolutely be playing this one over on my second channel, and then hopefully I can do a things you might have missed video on this one as well. You know I absolutely love making those videos, and I will absolutely cover any lore or theories on this channel when I can. If that sounds like something you'd be interested in, maybe give it a sub. We cover a lot of different horror games on this channel, and who knows, maybe some of them are for you. But if not, thank you for making it all the way through the video. I will see you next time.